It's time now to make the cutter for the T-slot cutter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some drill rod, 3/8 inch drill rod, and I'm going to make the shank of it around 3/16 inch, and that will match the slot that I cut in there earlier. And I'm going to show a little bit of procedure here of how I'm coming up with this design here. This is looking at the cutter profile from the bottom, looking at it from the bottom of the cutter, and this here should actually be a hidden line here, but this represents the 3/16 inch shaft, and this represents the 3/8 inch diameter of the cutter itself. So I start out with that, two circles there representing that. Then I start moving over and keeping it at 90 degrees. I put in my center lines, and then I bring down part of the cutter, or part of the shafting here, get rid of that part there, and have this here profile cut out this way here. Then from there I begin to look at that I want to get this here angle here. I'm bringing a line. I have now the cutter. This is the edge of the cutter right here. Here and here is the edge of the cutter now with that cut. This being representing the 3/16 inch diameter shaft, the neck part of that. So I drew a 90-degree reference here, and I got this here angle here, and when I established that angle, then I turned this 90-degree reference here to that angle and placed it on here at the intersection of the 3/16 inch shaft to a line that goes from here, the edge of the cutter, all the way to where the 3/16 inch shaft material will intersect the center line here, and brought that line, put this here reference on there, that 90-degree reference on there, so that I can extend a line perpendicular. And that's what I'm doing here now. I now extend a line perpendicular. I have this established now for a perpendicular line, and I want this here cutter now to be cut in this way here, where it starts at the edge of the cutter, and this perpendicular line will now intersect the tangent of the 3/16 inch shaft here, and that establishes this line here. Then I move on to the next here, and I get, that's the first cutter profile right there. That's the edge of the cutter, and this is the relief right here. This is the cutting edge. Again, we're looking at it from the bottom profile. Now I have all of this here, relief here to get rid of, and that's coming up here next. So from there, I just mirror that. So I have two, this is the cutter here now, cutter edge, relief, relief. And then from there, I start establishing now that I want to get back relief now, because the cutter right now is still following this cutter path here. So all this material is going to be rubbing in the workpiece. So I have to get the back relief now. So I take a line from here to a line that is the center between the its circumference here to this circumference here. This the center of this line here. I just bring that back there. Do the same thing up here. That's now my relief. And then from there, I get rid of that part here now. That would be the cutter path right here. I get rid of that cutter path. So now all that cutter path is gone. So when you have back relief now, all that's back relief. And then I drew another cutter path here to show that the cutter is now cutting here, and all of this is relieved. So that will never rub now in the material, only here and here will be the cutting now. But because I don't like the way that looks, I just figured I'd just go ahead and put a line across here and across here. Whoops. Get out of there. And then from there, I cut that off, and so that's the actual profile now. That's the cutter edges right here. This represents the hidden line. That will be the 3/16 inch shaft itself of the cutter. And then now I need to know how to cut this on my indexing jig. So now I find out that this angle here is 117 degrees, which is 27 degrees off of 90. So what I will do now is I will take the cutter profile, the preliminary profile that comes off of the lathe, and I will put in my indexing jig, and then I will index that 27 degrees, this direction here, and that will bring my cutter straight in now. I will then cut in until the edge of the cutter hits the 3/16 inch shaft material, and that will be the depth of cut. And then I will turn that 180 degrees apart from there, which is 180 plus 27, we have 207 degrees. I'll index at 207 degrees and then do the same thing again. And then I'll take it back to 0 degrees, and then I'll just lop off these here parts here to make it look nice. And then that will be the cutter profile right there. That should give me the relief I need here, so there's no rubbing, and I should be able to have the cutter path in this direction here. Now, this is going to be a 1/4 inch wide, the cutter. If that's going to be too much material to be cutting off, I can always, the first thing I will do is I will put notches in there and to make it look like a roughing end mill, and try that first. If it's still too much, then I will take that down from a 1/4 inch wide high to maybe 1/8 of an inch, and then just take multiple passes. But right now I'm just going to go with this here profile, and the next thing to do now will be go on my lathe now and to machine down the preliminary, and then take it from there to the indexing jig, and then get this here all cut out. Okay, that's what's coming up next.